When I was younger, I dated Jasper Field for 3 months, then we broke up. He thought I was too vanilla, not fun enough to mess around with. I hung out with my childhood friend, who was trying to be a rebellious type, for half a month. She blew a smoke ring and advised me to just focus on my studies, that I didn't have the life of a delinquent in me. I accepted reality, and after deeply reflecting on my youthful ignorance and naive belief in love, I decisively found myself a rich second-generation guy. The rich kid's name was Sonny Hayes. He was rich, generous, and handsome. The only downside was that he had a lot of exes and close female friends. I had just received Sonny's marriage proposal when I received a B-ultrasound of his close female friend, showing she was 8 weeks pregnant. I sat in the coffee shop, racking my brains for a long time, and finally said sincerely, I am so deeply and helplessly in love with Sonny. Why don't you have the baby? Although I'm young, I don't mind being a stepmother. 1. I swear, I was being genuine when I said that. But it seems like his close friend interpreted it as sarcasm. Seeing that I wasn't going to leave Sonny willingly, she started talking about her past with Sonny. Like when they went to see the Eiffel Tower in Paris together, when they climbed snow mountains together, when they spent New Year's Eve together. Like how 1 second Sonny was video calling me saying he missed me, and the next second he was tangled up with her after hanging up. His close friend had exceptional writing skills. I felt like I was listening to a poetic novel. After listening to her quietly for over 10 minutes, I glanced at the time and politely interrupted her, sorry, I have to go back to work. Her face instantly became very interesting. She glared at me, unable to say a word. I put on my coat, put on my scarf, and got up to leave. Are you really that shameless that you have to cling to Sonny? A woman whose entire style is designed to attract a husband, do you really think a rich second-generation guy like Sonny, who has seen countless beauties, would be interested in you? His close friend's voice was a bit shrill, and the originally noisy coffee shop instantly quieted down. I stopped and turned to look at her. Her expression was a bit twisted due to her emotional state. But a beauty is a beauty after all. Even a beauty with a twisted expression is much better looking than me. I smiled and ultimately said nothing. 2. I really didn't want to break up with Sonny. After all, he was the best man I knew in terms of overall qualities. His family was rich, he had a cheerful personality, and he was generous to me. Except for being a bit of a playboy, he had no other flaws. But which rich man isn't a playboy? He likes to have fun, likes to party, likes to have close female friends, that's all fine. As long as I'm his official girlfriend, and the woman he wants to marry is me, that's enough. I have a clear understanding of my own qualities. If I break up with Sonny, there's no way I'll find someone with his qualities again. As I entered the elevator, I carefully examined my outfit in the elevator door. A knitted scarf, a mid-length wool coat, paired with snow boots. Everything about me exuded simplicity. I was definitely far from fashionable, very much in line with the internet stereotype of a woman trying to attract a husband. I remembered my best friend's evaluation of me. Your personality is too dull, you really can't be a bad girl who knows how to seduce men. You only know how to study and aren't adaptable. You can only try to pass the civil service exam and become a low-level civil servant. You can't be a successful woman. If you want to turn your life around, the only way is to go the good woman route. Take advantage of the fact that you're still young and have the capital, and find a rich man. A rich second-generation guy is okay, a self-made rich guy is also fine. Be warm, caring, and considerate to them. Most importantly, you have to be generous and virtuous. But you have to hurry, a woman's golden period is only these few years. Once you get older, no matter how gentle, considerate, or generous you are, rich men won't be interested in you. Thinking of this, I looked at the ring on my middle finger and sighed. I can only hope that nothing goes wrong before I marry Sonny. As long as I marry Sonny, I can accept whether he has illegitimate sons or daughters. But sometimes, the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. 3. As I was about to leave work, I received a message from Sonny. He sent me an address and asked me to come over, saying it was a gathering with friends, and he wanted to introduce me to people. This had never happened before. Sonny and I both knew some things, but we hadn't explicitly talked about them. He and I were not in the same social circle, and our lifestyles were very different. Sonny divided his world into 2 distinct halves. When he wanted to have fun, he would party and play with his childhood friends, bringing this close female friend or that close female friend, living life to the fullest. When he was tired of playing, he would turn back to me and enjoy my meticulous care. Did he love me? The answer was naturally no. But he couldn't live without me. So even though my family background was ordinary and I didn't know how to dress up, he would still impulsively want to marry me at some point. But that was all there was to it. He wouldn't take me to meet his friends, nor would he let me integrate into his social circle. Because in his eyes, I wasn't presentable. And I had always been discreet, never actively asking to meet his friends. After all, although I was very clear that I was marrying up, and I accepted the fact that I would always be in a lower position, I didn't want to actively become the subject of gossip or give others the opportunity to dislike and despise me in person. On this point, Sonny and I had always had a tacit understanding. But today, he broke that understanding. 4. I rushed to the gathering place. The restaurant's heating was on full blast, so I could only take off my scarf and coat and hang them on my arm. I followed the waiter, turning left and right, and finally stopped at the door of a private room. I stood at the door, took a deep breath, and prepared myself mentally before pushing the door open. The truth is, my mental preparation was still insufficient. The private room was lively, filled with young men and women. The first person I saw wasn't my boyfriend, Sonny Hayes. It was Jasper Field, the center of attention. My first love. His appearance was as handsome as it had been back then. He wore a diamond stud in his left ear, and he was full of unruliness and arrogance. Jasper. I silently repeated these 2 words on my lips twice, then calmly looked away, searching for Sonny's whereabouts. He was sitting in a corner booth, talking to a woman with a smile on his face. Amidst the laughter and chatter, the woman couldn't help but raise her hand and tap Sonny's forehead with her knuckles. Very intimate, very sweet. I recognized this woman. She was Sonny's childhood friend. They grew up together since they were little, and their relationship was very close. To describe it in one sentence, it would probably be more than friends, less than lovers. Actually, it's understandable. They're too familiar with each other, so they can't take that step, afraid that in the end, they wouldn't even be friends. I was actually quite glad they weren't together, otherwise, where would there be room for me in this love game? I stood at the door for a long while, and no one paid any attention to me. A familiar sense of helplessness began to rise from the bottom of my heart. I felt like I was back in those years when I was 18, when I happily went to the bar to find Jasper, but after pushing open the door to the private room, all I felt was helplessness and incompatibility. I deeply realized that I and they were not from the same world. That was the case back then, and it's still the case now. Back then, I forced myself not to care because I loved Jasper. Now, I force myself not to care because I love money. I quietly walked up to Sonny, reached out, and patted his shoulder. Sonny's gaze fell on me. I clearly saw the smile in his eyes fade slightly. I put on a gentle smile, gently brushed away the stray hairs that had fallen on his forehead, and said in a soft voice, "Sorry, I had to work overtime today, so I'm a little late." He finally came back to his senses, reached out and rubbed my palm, frowning slightly. "Is the heating not warm enough? Why are your hands still so cold?" Maybe the temperature difference between indoors and outdoors is too big, and my body isn't used to it yet. "Are you cold?" I said, trying to pull my hand back. Sonny subconsciously tightened his grip. "I'm afraid you'll catch a cold." The originally noisy private room gradually quieted down at some point. The atmosphere froze strangely for a few seconds. I heard someone say playfully, "Sonny, is this your girlfriend who's rarely seen? Now that she's finally shown her face, aren't you going to introduce her?" I followed the source of the voice. The man who spoke was wearing a gaudy baseball jacket, sitting next to Jasper, looking nonchalant. Jasper leaned lazily against the back of his chair, playing with a lighter in his hand. Open, close, open, close. This was his standard move when he was feeling irritable. Sonny stood up, put his arm around my waist, and walked towards the crowd. "Okay, let me introduce you all. Rainy Wu, my girlfriend." "What girlfriend? You're already wearing a ring. When are you inviting us to your wedding?" Someone with sharp eyes saw the ring on my hand and joked with a laugh. My hand subconsciously clenched, then quickly relaxed. Sonny's body stiffened, but he quickly recovered. "As long as you guys have the red envelopes ready, I can get married anytime." Someone was about to start a commotion, but Sonny defended me. "She's shy. You can tease me, but don't mess with her." So the commotion grew even louder. Sonny was pulled away by his friends to drink, and I had nothing to do, so I quietly sat in the corner and played with my phone. But there was nothing to play with, really. I don't like variety shows, I don't play games, I don't read novels, and I don't watch short videos. I like to space out, but spacing out in this lively atmosphere would be too inappropriate. So I started eating. Slowly, taking small bites, eating the desserts on the coffee table. I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm actually a little hungry. I sat in this private room for 2 hours and 19 minutes. I ate a plate of mung bean cakes, 3 cherry tomatoes, and drank 2 glasses of juice. Behind me, there was a gaze that had been watching me from beginning to end. But I never looked back. 5. It was already midnight when the gathering ended. Sonny had too much to drink, and he was staggering a bit as he walked. Several girls wanted to help him, but Sonny waved his hand and ultimately chose Miss Childhood Friend, who had the deepest connection with him. As for me, I was responsible for holding his coat and car keys, preparing to be a qualified driver. Sonny walked halfway, groggily turned around, and called my name, Rainy. I responded softly, I'm here. Arriving at the parking lot, I opened the back car door, watched Miss Childhood Friend laboriously help Sonny into the car, and said goodbye to her friends. Getting into the car, preparing to start the engine, my eyes inadvertently swept over the 2 coats I had placed on the passenger seat, and I remembered that I had forgotten to take my scarf. But Miss Childhood Friend had already closed the car door and was just waiting for me to drive. Oh well, it's not like it's anything valuable. If I forgot it, I forgot it. Before leaving, I finally couldn't help but glance at Jasper in the rearview mirror. He was facing away from me, lowering his eyes to light a cigarette, his whole body exuding an aura of coldness. I withdrew my gaze and silently twitched the corners of my mouth. It was a kind of mockery of my ignorant self back then. 6. The car drove into Sonny's garage. I had originally planned to stay and take care of him, but the Hayes family had many servants, so it really wasn't my place to take care of him. Miss Childhood Friend also on one said euphemistically that Sonny's parents liked sensible and discreet girls, and since Sonny hadn't formally taken me home yet, I should be aware of my place. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I discreetly blew cold wind for half an hour at the entrance of this luxurious villa complex, and finally waited for my Didi. Big cities are good, you can get a Didi even in the middle of the night. But forgetting to take my scarf was really bad. The cold wind of this harsh winter was really biting, and I almost got face paralysis. The car arrived at the complex, it was already 3 in the morning. I wearily moved my steps. The elevator door opened, and I clumsily began to take out my keys. I smelled a strong smell of smoke, and I slowly looked up, still wondering if someone's house was on fire. Then I saw a tall man standing at my door. At his feet was a thick pile of cigarette butts, and slender fingers were holding a bit of crimson. The other hand was holding the scarf I had left behind. 7. I actually hadn't imagined what the scene would be like when Jasper and I reunited. When I was younger, I felt like he had hurt me deeply. It's no exaggeration to say that I really felt like the sky had fallen back then, and my whole person was dazed and had no desire to live. But as time passed, I felt like it was just a small matter of me loving you and you not loving me. In this life, money, work, health, which one isn't more important than love? Besides, I'm really a little tired today. Once people pass their youngest years, their physical functions start to decline. Now, if I go to bed after 11 o'clock, my brain is just a mess, unable to think at all. So I just numbly opened the door, numbly changed my slippers, numbly turned around, and wanted to close the door. Jasper reached out and blocked my action. At least we had a past, it's too rude for you not even to say hello. Probably because he smoked too much, his voice was a little hoarse. Sometimes I think that I am too conservative in my thinking. I can't understand this lifestyle of maintaining good relationships with many exes, contacting them privately, and even occasionally rekindling old flames when the mood is right. I once discussed this issue with my best friend. As a representative who would get back into the same bed with an ex, she said that this was too normal. She said that it was because of nostalgia. It's like a toy you liked when you were a kid, but you don't like it anymore when you grow up. But that doesn't stop you from picking it up and looking at it with nostalgia when you see it again. I couldn't understand it at the time, but shouldn't people be loyal to their feelings? My best friend laughed at my naivety. This era has given the word loyalty a new definition. We call people who are unswervingly loyal to love-brained. And people like you, who self-righteously give everything for Jasper, and are so serious that it's laughable, we call them simps. At that time, in order to understand Jasper's thoughts, I seriously hung out with my best friend for a while. She took me to various occasions and introduced me to all kinds of different people. Unfortunately, I was never a smart student, and I could never learn their way of life. In the end, I could only helplessly accept that I was indeed not from the same world as Jasper, and his footsteps would never stop for me. He didn't love me, not at all. He even started dating me in the first place just to laugh at me. I clumsily followed him, racking my brains to make him happy, and trying my best to be good to him, taking a 2-hour bus ride from the east side of the city to the west side, just because he casually mentioned that he wanted to eat braised pork ribs, so I immediately made them and brought them to him. Probably in Jasper's eyes, all my efforts were cheap and ridiculous. But what could I do? I was just an ordinary woman like that, without any shining points that could attract other people's attention. The only thing I had was my sincerity. I piously dug out my heart and handed it to Jasper. He took it, looked at it in his hand, examined it from left to right, and then found it boring, so he casually threw it away. So sincerity shattered all over the ground. Later, I collected those fragments again and discovered that I had used the wrong method. Sincerity cannot be exchanged for sincerity. But sincerity can be exchanged for money. Sonny gave me a lot of feedback. Every time he found a close female friend, he would send me an expensive gift. From jewelry to bags. His guilt was worth a lot of money. For example, today's incident of me taking a taxi home alone. When Sonny wakes up tomorrow, he will probably send me another bag. I only want bags, and I don't want to have any more involvement with an ex who has hurt me deeply. So I held the doorknob and looked at Jasper for a long time. His expression was obscured by the hazy smoke, or maybe the light was too dim, I really couldn't see clearly. I asked him, "Are you here to return the scarf?" He said, "No." I nodded, and seriously pushed away his arm that was blocking the doorway. This time, I could finally close the door and lock it. 8. I started being called out frequently by Sonny to hang out with his friends. Of course, his friends always included Jasper. As we hung out more often, Sonny would inevitably talk about his friends' situations. I finally knew Jasper's current identity. A hot new generation racing driver, the young master of the Field family who had been lost for many years. It was really amazing. The Jasper I knew was a rebellious teenager who had relied on his grandmother since he was a child. He did like cars, but at that time, he wasn't financially well off, so he could only ride around on a dilapidated second-hand motorcycle. In my brief relationship with him, the most memorable scene was probably when he put a heavy helmet on me and told me to hold his waist while sitting on the back of the motorcycle, saying that he would take me far away. At that time, I really believed that he would take me far away. 9. In front of Sonny's friends, I never shied away from the fact that I took care of Sonny in every detail, no matter how trivial. His friends would make fun of me at first, but after seeing it more often, they got used to it. Of course, I didn't want to know whether they despised or envied it in private. Regarding Sonny's pregnant close female friend, I didn't know how he handled it. But Sonny's attitude towards me remained the same, which made me feel a little relieved. It's just that there was still a faint anxiety growing in my heart, probably because of the almost undisguisedly aggressive look in Jasper's eyes every time I met him, or because Sonny was uninterested in our wedding date and didn't care about it. I was always worried that things would change. Sure enough, things finally changed. During a weekend camping trip, Sonny suddenly received a phone call. His face didn't look too good at the time. He just said that he would talk about it when he got home. After a while, Sonny suggested that he had something urgent to deal with and had to go home first. Instantly, I felt a lot of hidden gazes fall on me. I came in Sonny's car. He was leaving, and I wasn't familiar with the remaining people, so I naturally had to leave with him. But Sonny obviously didn't want to take me home right now. I was thinking about whether to take Sonny's car down the mountain first and then take a taxi home myself when I heard Jasper suddenly say, "Sonny, if you have something to do, go ahead and take care of it. I'll give your girlfriend a ride home later, since I'm going that way." As soon as he finished speaking, Sonny nodded casually, "Okay, then I'll trouble you." Obviously, Sonny didn't care whether I left or stayed. My movement of getting up stiffened, and I could only slowly sit back down. Before leaving, Sonny looked at me deeply. I had a strong feeling in my heart that once he left, that would probably be the end of him and me. So for the first time, I took the initiative to make a request to him. "Sonny, I want to go with you. Be good, listen to me." Sonny frowned, stepped on the gas, and left directly. I stood there, my phone vibrated twice. Someone had sent me a message. I looked down, it was that Mississippi close female friend who hadn't made any moves for a long time. She told me that she had gone to Sonny's parents, and they had agreed to let her marry Sonny. A warm body stood behind me. Jasper leaned over without hesitation and looked at my phone screen, smiling casually. "She moves really fast." My eyelashes fluttered, and I looked up at him. "Rainey, she has a good family background, a beautiful face, and now she's pregnant with Sonny's child. What do you have to compete with her? I thought you should have known to back down when you met at the coffee shop that day. You don't really think that as long as you unconditionally please Sonny, he will marry you, do you?" 10. Sonny would definitely marry me. If Jasper hadn't been interfering. But this matter has already reached Sonny's parents' ears. The probability of him marrying me again is very slim. I was a little disappointed, but there was also a kind of relieved calmness. From the day I saw Jasper again, I knew that my plan wouldn't go too smoothly. I silently put away my phone, prepared to pack my belongings, and take a taxi home. This camping spot is relatively remote, and it's not easy to get a taxi. But it doesn't matter. I would rather spend 2 hours walking down the mountain than get into Jasper's passenger seat. Charging cable, water cup, sunglasses, I stuffed them all into my bag. Jasper followed behind me with a displeased expression, staring at my movements. Finally, he exploded, snatched my bag, and threw it hard into the distance. The contents of the bag were scattered all over the ground. The surroundings instantly quieted down, and probing eyes looked back and forth between Jasper and me. I glanced at the bag and felt a little regret. It was quite expensive. If Jasper wasn't here today, I probably would have run over happily and picked up the things again. But at this moment, I just felt physically and mentally exhausted. Sorry, you guys have fun, I'm going back first. I tried my best to keep my emotions calm, not letting my voice tremble. It's just that my action of turning around and leaving empty-handed looked very embarrassed. Jasper's whole body tensed up, reached out and grabbed my arm with great force. I stopped, raised my hand, and gave him a heavy slap. I even heard a gasp of air around me. Jasper's head was turned to the side by my slap, but the hand holding me never let go. Are you feeling better? If not, do you want another slap on this side too? He pointed to the other half of his face and asked me. 11. I didn't want to have an argument with Jasper in public. Especially in front of this group of young masters and young ladies who never put me in their eyes. Maybe the expression on my face as I looked at Jasper was too stubborn and embarrassed. Jasper bit his cheek, compromised, let go of my hand, and took a step back. I'm sorry. I widened my eyes, took a shallow breath, and held back the wetness in my eyes. He took the initiative to bend over, put my scattered items back into the bag, and held it in his hand. I'll take you back. He wouldn't budge on this one thing. I didn't dare to look at what the onlookers' expressions were. Jasper drove a very conspicuous sports car. Seeing that I was hesitant to get in, he couldn't help but sigh. It's so cold, how are you going to get back if you don't get in my car? I'm not a kidnapper, I won't sell you. I stood there and told him blankly, I don't know how to open your car door. Sonny also has a sports car, but as everyone knows, the standard for a sports car's passenger seat is a beautiful woman. Obviously, I don't qualify. So until now, I've never been in this kind of car with a super low chassis and an unusual way of opening the door. Jasper probably didn't expect my reason for refusing to get in the car to be so refreshing and unconventional. He was stunned for a second and took the initiative to open the car door for me. Get in the car. On the way back, I was always nervous. Probably because of his habit as a racing driver, Jasper drove very hard. I even suspected that he had removed the car's brake pads. Several times the car narrowly brushed against the edge of the mountain, and I closed my eyes in fear, afraid that the next second I would have a bloody and intimate encounter with the hard rocks. My adrenaline was pumping higher and higher. I held the seatbelt tightly with both hands. Finally, when Jasper took another high-speed turn, I couldn't help but scream, "Stop the car." A harsh braking sound rang out. My body lunged forward due to inertia and was forcibly pulled back to its original position by the seat belt. A faint click sound was Jasper lighting a cigarette, exhaling smoke. You would rather be a stepmother than break up with Sonny, why? Do you really love him that much? I was still in shock and didn't want to answer Jasper's question for the time being. You should have known when you broke up with me that you and us are not from the same world. You should find a good man and live an ordinary life. Jasper lowered the car window, casually rested the hand holding the cigarette on the window frame, turned his head to look at me. Rainy, break up with Sonny. I just found it ridiculous. Jasper, don't you feel guilty for saying that? What position and what qualification do you have to interfere in my love life? Have I ever done anything to offend you? Have I ever pestered you? Why is it that all your exes can receive your sincere blessings, but you just can't stand to see me doing well? I wouldn't be narcissistic enough to think that Jasper still had lingering feelings for me. His attitude towards me was probably like what my best friend had said, even if you lose something that once belonged to you, don't give it to someone else. In Jasper's eyes, I should find an ordinary, unremarkable, not very rich, and not very outstanding man that he doesn't know to spend my life with. I only deserve this kind of man. I can't marry up to Jasper, nor can I marry up to his friends. Jasper, I haven't hurt you. I looked at him sadly and said softly, let me go, just pretend that we've never met. I never regretted that I loved Jasper, but if life gave me a chance to start over, I would choose never to meet him again. Jasper stared at me, without speaking. I sniffed my sore nose, lowered my head, and trembled as I tried to unbuckle my seat belt and get out of the car. A huge force pressed my shoulders firmly against the seat. I looked up in panic, and before I could speak, Jasper grabbed my chin and kissed me hard. My cry of surprise was stuck in my throat. I struggled desperately, but the more I struggled, the deeper Jasper kissed me. My lips were bitten until they bled, and there was a strong bloody smell in the entanglement of my lips and tongue. I whimpered softly, but Jasper refused to let go. His kiss was so desperate. But why? I should be the one who was desperate. My struggles grew weaker and weaker. I closed my eyes and only tasted bitterness. Tears are really bitter when you're sad. 12. I'm actually a person with a very low tear threshold. But I don't like to cry in front of people. Maybe it's because I'm the second oldest child in the family, and I've always been the one who was ignored, not as pleasing as my older sister, nor as favored as my younger brother. I got used to my feelings being ignored by others, and slowly, even I didn't care much about my own feelings. A sentimental soundtrack and a few compassionate scenes can easily draw out my tears. But when it comes to my own affairs, I rarely have emotional fluctuations. The only 2 times were because of Jasper. Once, I cried and asked him if we could not break up. Now, I cry and ask him if he can let me go. Unfortunately, Jasper's answers to me have always been negative. He took me home, and the car was parked downstairs at my house for a long time. Finally, he handed me a bank card and said in a hoarse voice, "Swipe it as you please." How generous. He said that if I really didn't want to leave this circle, he was more suitable for me than Sonny. At least, he wouldn't ask me to make limitless sacrifices for him in the name of loving me. He could give me anything except marriage. I took the card, carefully observing it in my hand. The pure black card surface, the special material, was very different from ordinary Union Pay cards. After looking at it enough, I put the bank card back into Jasper's wallet and then told him, "I don't want anything except marriage." I've always been very clear. From beginning to end, Jasper couldn't give me what I wanted. 13. Sonny was out of contact for a few days. Every message I sent him sank without a trace. Actually, that was fine, otherwise, I would have to explain why I had a wound on my mouth when we met. When I talked about this with my best friend, she said that I lacked a little luck. She said that Jasper was my jinx. As long as I had anything to do with Jasper in this life, nothing good would come of it. She also scolded me for not rejecting Jasper's black card, saying that I had been taken advantage of so much by Jasper that I should at least get some money back to make up for it. But since things had come to this, she also told me to relax. At least Jasper was a handsome man, so I didn't suffer too much of a loss. She had said all the good and bad things, so I could only remain silent. At the end of work, I walked out of the company on the dot. I saw Sonny, whom I hadn't seen for many days, leaning against his BMW, looking handsome with one hand in his pocket, smiling at me. Sonny rarely picked me up from work, but every time he did, he would bring a bouquet of flowers. I have to admit that the reason why I was willing to marry Sonny even if it meant being a stepmother was not just because he was a rich second-generation guy. Some details, even if I knew that they were just insincere routines, girls really liked them. Otherwise, why are scumbags so popular? There's a reason for it. But Sonny didn't bring flowers today. There was even a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. I guessed that he was probably here to tell me that we were breaking up. Actually, it didn't have to be so troublesome. He could have just called me or sent me a message. He could even do nothing. As long as he actively stayed away from me, I would have had the self-awareness not to bother him anymore. For example, I had sent him messages for 5 consecutive days, and he hadn't replied. If he didn't come to find me today, that would have been the end of us. Sonny took me to a Japanese restaurant where the average cost per person was not cheap, and he took care of me throughout the meal. The roles of caregiver and care receiver were reversed, which made me very uncomfortable. So halfway through the meal, I took the initiative to speak. If you have something you want to say, just say it directly. I didn't think that Sonny owed me anything. From beginning to end, I knew what kind of person he was. All my efforts towards him were willing and had been made in expectation of returns. It would be great if we could be together for a lifetime. If not, I wouldn't be any different from his other ex-girlfriends who had broken up peacefully. If we met again in the future, we could still greet each other with a smile. Sonny put down his chopsticks, took a deep breath, and looked at me seriously. I also looked at him. "Rainey, let's get married." 14. I had thought about many things. What excuses Sonny would make, what compensation he would give me. The only thing I hadn't thought about was that he would marry me. I did encounter some things these past few days. Sonny looked a little embarrassed. "This matter is actually not very fair to you, but I still selfishly want to keep you. I unexpectedly had another child, and the woman insists on giving birth to this child." Sonny didn't dare to look at me. "Although I have a duty to support this child, don't worry, I won't let this child affect our relationship. And the child won't be registered in my household register. I promise you that my household register will only have me and your child." I was stunned for a long time before asking, "Does the child's mother not mind?" This is the result of our negotiation. I can only say that we were both too young and made mistakes. Young, that excuse is so useful. It's as if as long as you bring out this excuse, all the wrong things you've done can be forgiven. But what does that have to do with me? I just wanted to marry Sonny. So I nodded slowly and agreed to him. "Okay, let's get married." 15. Sonny started preparing for the wedding, with an unprecedentedly positive attitude. As if he was worried that I would go back on my word. But he was really overthinking it. How could I go back on my word? After choosing an auspicious day, Sonny formally took me home. His parents' attitude towards me was lukewarm, but their etiquette was proper. It's just that when we talked about the important matter of marriage, Sonny's parents said that we needed to sign a prenuptial agreement. After all, I was willing to marry Sonny even if it meant being a stepmother. It was really hard for them not to suspect my motives for marrying Sonny. Sonny was feeling guilty towards me at the time, so he was very opposed to this matter. However, the arm couldn't twist the thigh. Their parents agreeing to our marriage was already a big step back. If we pushed our luck any further, the marriage might be called off, and it would be more harm than good. I didn't care. Being able to marry Sonny was already me crossing the class boundary. People can't be too greedy. Moreover, my material desires weren't that high. With Sonny's generosity towards me, even a little bit that slipped through his fingers would be enough for me to live very comfortably. I wanted to get married, wanted to have a child, wanted the child to have a good material life, to be loved by their parents, and when they grew up, to find a partner for life and live a happy and joyful life. I hoped that all my unattainable regrets could be fulfilled in my child. Sonny could give me all of these things. What more could I ask for? 16. My parents' reaction to my getting married was lukewarm. But when they found out that Sonny was a rich second-generation guy, their attitude immediately changed. They had never placed any hope on me. Their only requirement for me was not to be a burden to the family. So from a young age, I had lived on scholarships. But I was never a genius. Every point I got was earned by me working hard and reading late into the night. As the neglected child, I had to help take care of my younger brother and run errands for my older sister, and I had to do a lot of housework. My parents had high expectations for my older sister, hoping that she could use her beauty to hook a rich man and earn some family property for my younger brother. They always said that my younger brother was the pillar of the family and that we all had to be good to him. As for me, it was enough to have food to eat. I lived in the shadows, growing up slowly, failing to become a particularly outstanding person, and failing to become a rebellious person. I was a dim star, with weak starlight, not noticeable at all. So after growing up, I seriously thought back to the past and felt that it was not surprising at all that I would be hurt by Jasper back then. I was just a pitiful worm who lacked love, thinking with all my heart that I had found my salvation, but the result was that I had stepped into the abyss. My biggest shortcoming was that I didn't have the ability to love myself. I always hoped that someone could love me without reservation, could see through my sensitive fragility beneath my disguise, and then embrace me tightly. But I had no highlights, so why should others love me? But people's experiences are really unpredictable. Although I didn't meet a lover, I met a suitable husband. No one expected that I, who was so low-key and had no presence, would actually find a rich second-generation guy with my personality. Sonny was rich, the kind of rich that could allow our entire family to prosper. So my parents made a special trip to come over from thousands of miles away, planning for our family to gather together and discuss how much dowry we should ask the Hayes family for. In the narrow rented house, my parents and younger brother were enthusiastically discussing buying a house for my younger brother first after the dowry arrived. My older sister was critically examining my house, her expression both jealous and disdainful. I quietly lowered my eyes, a wave of nausea surging in my heart. This wasn't the first time I had felt that I had a disgusting family. But it was the first time that I couldn't stand the disgust and wretched. Instantly, the lively living room quieted down. All the relatives' eyes fell on me, with a strange fanaticism. My mother tentatively opened her mouth. Are you pregnant? My face turned as pale as paper in an instant. 17. My older sister glanced at me and revealed a look of sudden realization. No wonder you can marry a rich man. So you're pregnant before marriage. That trick is really good. My mother happily got up, wanting to help me sit on the sofa, scolding me with a smile. You child, why didn't you say something so important sooner? My younger brother was full of excitement. Is my older sister now carrying the Hayes family seed? Then can we ask for more dowry? It should be at least doubled. My father revealed a disapproving look. We can't ask for too much, otherwise people might think we're selling our daughter. We still have to play the long game. Let them give $300,000 for the dowry, just to show their appreciation. When you graduate from college in the future, let your brother-in-law arrange a good job for you, and then find a wealthy wife. That's what matters for a lifetime. My hand trembled as I covered my mouth with force. Disgusting, so disgusting, every cell in my body was screaming with disgust and wanting to vomit. I couldn't hold back any longer, quickly ran into the bathroom, and hugged the toilet, vomiting completely. I wanted to marry Sonny. I wanted to marry a rich man. I wanted to live a good life. I wanted to break away from my original family. I had wanted so many things, and my success was within reach. But I suddenly realized with despair that I couldn't do it. I was probably pregnant. But the child couldn't be Sonny's. 18. I firmly denied the fact that I was pregnant, only saying that I had been preparing for the wedding recently and was under a lot of pressure. Of course they didn't believe it. They weren't stupid. I told them that Sonny's parents were relatively traditional and didn't like women who had premarital sex to be their daughters-in-law, so Sonny and I had always kept things proper. If they didn't believe me and made a big deal out of it, the Hayes family would very likely call off the marriage. Anyway, Sonny was very outstanding and there were many women who wanted to marry him. My parents immediately became honest. They were very afraid that the cooked duck would fly away at the last moment. I took advantage of my work and took half a day off to go to the hospital for an examination. The result came out, and it was what I least wanted to accept. My best friend gave me 2 suggestions. First, have an abortion, keep it a secret, and continue preparing for the wedding with Sonny. Anyway, Sonny cheating is a common occurrence, so I really don't need to have any psychological burden. Second, make Jasper take responsibility. Of course, Jasper definitely wouldn't marry me, but getting a large sum of money and then having an abortion, changing cities and starting over, my life wouldn't be too bad in the future. She repeatedly urged me to stay rational and not make any impulsive decisions. I knew what she meant. Growing up together, she knew me too well. My soul was too divided. Reason told me to be a clear-headed and selfish person. Since others didn't care about morality, I shouldn't care either. I had put in a lot of effort, and getting anything was what I deserved. But the books I had read, the words I had seen, my knowledge, and my soul were all telling me that I had done wrong. I didn't want to become a morally corrupt person. I had my own true desires, I just didn't deserve to get them. So I hated myself. I was clear-headed on one hand and sinking on the other, joyful on one hand and painful on the other. I was about to be torn apart by myself. I thought, I should make a decision. 19. I called Sonny and asked him to meet. I rarely called him proactively. After all, his life was so rich, what if my call disturbed his interest? Sending a message was a good choice. If he was willing, he would reply, if he wasn't, he would just pretend he didn't see it. Sonny rushed over. As soon as he sat down, he couldn't wait to ask me what was going on. Rainey, I just realized that you haven't called me much. Sonny looked at me with a smile, that's not good. Remember to cling to me more. His phone was on the table, and the screen lit up. I saw the caller ID. Julie Lane. That was the pregnant Mississippi close female friend. During this time, Sonny often received this call when he was with me. He had indeed not lied to me. This child would not affect our relationship, and would not be registered on his household register in the future. But he was still the child's father. Mississippi close female friend had a legitimate excuse to ask him to accompany her for prenatal checkups, buy baby supplies, and decorate the baby's room. So when we were trying on wedding dresses, booking hotels, choosing wedding celebrations, Mississippi close female friend's calls were everywhere. Sonny always looked at me apologetically while suppressing his impatience and answering the phone. Love is truly incomprehensible. Mississippi close female friend is so much more outstanding than me, but she still fell in love. I can't even imagine that if I were her, the world would be vast and I could roam freely. Why would I need a man? But all of this has nothing to do with me in the future. I took off the diamond ring on my middle finger and pushed it in front of Sonny. I'll return it to you. Sonny's smile froze. I'm sorry, Sonny, I can't marry you. I looked at him and said softly, I cheated. 20. Sonny didn't believe that I would cheat at all. Maybe my image of being virtuous and understanding was too deeply ingrained. No matter how I explained it, he just thought that I was throwing a tantrum. He promised me that he wouldn't delay the time we spent together in the future because of the child and that he would be twice as good to me. He even swore that he would cut off all contact with those women in the future. In the end, I could only take out my pregnancy certificate. Karma is a cycle. He cheated and had a child. I cheated and also had a child. From this perspective, at least we don't owe each other anything in this relationship. Sonny only glanced at it before forcefully crumpling the examination report into a ball. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and said to me, I did do a lot of things that I was sorry for before, but now we're even. You have an abortion, and I'll pretend that nothing happened. I'm sorry, Sonny, I want to give birth to this child. My personality has already been distorted. This child is my only hope. He binds me and prevents me from continuing to fall. I still want to struggle in the light and don't want to fall into darkness completely. Who is the child's father? It doesn't matter. This is my child alone. From the time I rejected Jasper's black card, I had completely broken off contact with him. I blacklisted all of his contact information and didn't answer any unfamiliar calls. I never attended any events where he was present. The news that Sonny was getting married had also spread throughout his circle of friends. With Jasper's pride, he would never look at me again in this lifetime. That was good. Never seeing each other again for the rest of our lives was the best ending between me and Jasper. But Sonny suddenly asked me, it's Jasper's, right? I was shocked for a second, and then acquiesced. That's right, I should have guessed long ago that I couldn't hide it from Sonny. After all, during that camping trip, I slapped Jasper in front of many people. Jasper not only didn't get angry, but he also insisted on taking me home himself. Adults understood what this action meant. I just didn't expect that Sonny had obviously known about this for a long time, but he had never mentioned it to me. Thinking about it again, it was probably normal in their circle for your current girlfriend to be your ex-girlfriend. Sonny asked me, "Did you ever love me?" I looked at him in surprise. Sonny laughed. I used to be annoyed when my exes always asked me this question. As adults, we're willing to do what we do, and we know it. Why do we have to humiliate ourselves? He smiled, but his voice gradually lowered. What goes around comes around. Today, I finally understand how they felt back then. I pursed my lips. You're probably just temporarily unable to accept that I'm the one who's breaking up. After all, few women would take the initiative to break up with Sonny. Can you believe that before today, I thought that you were definitely the one who couldn't live without me? Sonny looked at me with a smile, but it turned out to be me. The person who was always cautious and afraid of separation took the initiative to say goodbye. The person who could draw back at any time was begging to stay. Sonny asked me, "Would you consider letting me be a happy dad?" I thought I had misheard. What did you say? Just kidding. Sonny winked mischievously. I looked at him without speaking. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Sonny sighed. All right, since you've already made a decision, I can only respect you. But are you sure you want to be a single mother? It will be very hard. I finally revealed a faint smile. Thank you for your blessing. I was already very satisfied to be able to break up peacefully. Having said almost everything that needed to be said, I got up and said goodbye to him. Out of politeness, Sonny said he would take me home. I refused. He nodded and didn't force it. Then you go first. I'll sit here for a while longer. When I reached the door, I couldn't help but turn around and look at him. He was still sitting in his seat, playing with the ring in his hand. 21. I found a new place to live and prepared to move. Before everything was settled, I didn't tell my parents that Sonny and I had broken up. After all, I had a lot of things to do recently and didn't have the energy to deal with their big fuss. I made a detailed schedule and completed it in an orderly manner according to the table. On the way home from work, I was thinking about the confinement center. After all, I couldn't count on my elders to help, so I had to prepare in advance. When I was on vacation, I would visit a few confinement centers. As I was thinking this, the elevator arrived, and I was about to step out with the groceries. Then I saw a familiar scene. Jasper was standing at my door, the ground covered with cigarette butts, a still-burning cigarette between his fingers. Hearing the sound, he looked up, his eyes deep. This time, my reaction was to immediately turn around and enter the elevator, frantically pressing the close button. But Jasper's movements were faster than the elevator door. Before the elevator door closed, he reached out and blocked it. Then step by step, he walked into the elevator and approached me. I retreated step by step until my back was against the elevator door, with no way to retreat. You? I said with a trembling voice, we can talk things out. Not answering my calls, blacklisting me, hiding from me, Rainey, is that your attitude to talk things out? His eyes slid down and landed on my stomach. After a long while, the corners of his mouth slowly curved up. Carrying my child, but not telling me, you're so brave? His tone was very gentle, but I knew that the angrier he was, the gentler his tone was. I didn't want you to be responsible, I promise. I won't disturb you. I tried to get him to let me go. So good. Jasper gently stroked my cheek. Should I praise you? I whimpered, barely able to make any sound. In front of Jasper, I never had room to resist. Jasper looked at me, and after a long while, he sighed softly. Never mind. He said, Rainey, I've given you 2 chances, there won't be a third time. Let's be entangled for a lifetime, love or hate, until death do us part. The end. Bonus chapters. 1. Jasper Field was a complete villain who had only done one good thing in his life. And that was breaking up with Rainey Wu. He knew from the beginning that they were not from the same world and could not be integrated at all. But he still indulged his selfishness and fulfilled his greed. He was too greedy for Rainey's warmth. The closer he got, the more addicted he became. Before he was completely addicted and couldn't turn back, he chose to break up. He was afraid of the feeling of having his emotions completely controlled by another person. He wanted to laugh when he saw Rainey, and he became irritable when he couldn't see her. He didn't want this. So he let himself rot in the darkness and continued to degenerate into the bottomless darkness. He showed Rainey his ugliest side. He thought that this was good. After having an ex like him, Rainey would definitely not be deceived by men in the future. He was not a loyal and affectionate person. After breaking up with Rainey, he didn't think about her much. After his background was revealed, he had a new identity and played more and more casually. Anyway, he was just such a rotten person, without a soul, his body empty, and he couldn't take out anything to fill it. So he liked extreme sports. Only at the moment when he was on the edge of life and death did he feel like he was alive. He would think of Rainie's face very occasionally. In that illusory world where everyone's faces were blurred, Rainie was the only truth. 2. Jasper and Rainie reunited in that coffee shop. He heard Rainie's conversation with Julie, and Rainie would rather be a stepmother than break up with Sonny. At that moment, Jasper knew that things were bad. He clearly noticed that the chain that bound the beast in his heart was loosening. He knew that it was unwillingness. Why was Sonny worthy of someone even he wasn't worthy of? He watched Rainie take care of Sonny with meticulous care, just like she used to take care of him. So Jasper tasted a new emotion, called jealousy. He was like a voyeur, watching Rainie and Sonny's interaction with self-abuse, and the negative emotions in his heart were overwhelming, constantly trying to drown his reason. He wanted to be a good person, so he made a sincere suggestion and asked Rainie to leave. She should find a good man and live a down-to-earth and happy life, instead of being hurt by scumbags again and again. Rainie's rejection became the last straw that broke his reason. He was not a good person in the first place, so why pretend to be aloof? He thought that he could give Rainie everything that Sonny could give. If Rainie needed someone by her side, why couldn't that person be him? But Rainie refused. The only thing he was unwilling to give was marriage. But the only thing Rainie wanted was marriage. What was so good about marriage? Did she think that if she married Sonny, Sonny would treat her wholeheartedly? That was impossible. Anyway, they would all cheat. What was the point of a marriage that couldn't even maintain the most basic loyalty? 3. During the time when Rainie was avoiding him, Jasper developed a new habit. Every day, he would drive and hide downstairs at Rainie's house, quietly waiting for the lights in her house to turn on. He clearly knew that the light was not for him, but it was amazing that he felt peaceful as long as he saw that light. He even accepted the fact that Rainie and Sonny were getting married. This world was just unfair. Some people were always luckier than him and could easily get what he carefully treasured, and even admitting his desire felt like blasphemy. His treasure, his body, his soul, his love, were all too dirty. He didn't dare to admit that when he saw Rainie for the first time, his feeling was regret. Regret for his past indulgence, regret for not living his life well. But there was never any regret medicine in the world. So he could only hold on, ignoring everything, and finally deceiving even himself. He always comforted himself, never mind, it's okay, let it be, they were not on the same path anyway. It's just that there was always a weak voice in his heart, stubbornly emerging from the thick disguise, questioning himself again and again. Why, can't I? Yes, why can't I? But it just so happened that I couldn't. 4. In the end, Jasper still married Rainie. They had a lovely child. That child had a lot of love and was the happiest child. They were the most harmonious family in the eyes of outsiders. It's just that Rainie never asked about Jasper's private life. She didn't care whether Jasper cheated or had a new love. She was like a kite, guided by Jasper with a thread called marriage certificate. As long as he didn't let go, the kite would always be in his palm. But once he let go, the kite would fly away and never look back. But Jasper didn't mind. He carefully held the kite string, staring intently at the kite. The person who once mocked loyalty the most desperately used loyalty to weave the string, trying to firmly tie the kite to his palm. Rainie lived to be 80 years old and died peacefully. She didn't have anything to explain in her will, only hoping that her children and grandchildren would be happy. A month after her death, Jasper followed in her footsteps and also left. Before his death, he kept mumbling, "The string is broken, my kite is gone." Jasper was a man of few words. Few of his descendants could understand his thoughts. It was only his granddaughter, who resembled Rainie the most, who heard this, and with quick small steps, she hugged Rainie's urn and handed it to Jasper. "Grandpa, your kite is here." Jasper used his last bit of strength to hug the urn in his arms and finally closed his eyes peacefully. His kite was safely in his arms. 5. Regarding Sonny. Sonny had a doubt. Was his feelings for Rainie more about dependence or more about love? He was the one who told Jasper about Rainie's pregnancy. The thing about wanting to be the father of Rainie's child was not a joke. Maybe people's feelings are really too complicated. He thought about it for a lifetime, and when he couldn't figure it out, he stopped thinking about it. After all, whether he had figured it out or not, he had already lost her.